Tonight we move into our nouns. Last week we talked about our verbs, and I hope that that was sufficient for you. Did you get your little card made up for your verb? All right. Well, tonight we're going to make one out like this for nouns. Now, last week I covered the fact that verbs had 5 components: tense, voice, mood, person, number. The good news is that nouns are much easier. There's 3 things. And they sound like a health food store at the mall. G, N, and C. There we go. Alright, every noun has 3 characteristics, G, N, C. It has gender. In our case, we have masculine, feminine, and neuter. We have number, which is the same as the other one, single or plural. Now here's where it gets interesting, because all nouns in Greek have case. Now, case means how they are used. The case of a noun will determine whether it is the subject, or the object, or the indirect object, or the property, like genitive, or a 5th case that's rarely used is called vocative. And that's the, like, direct address. Oh, wretched man that I am. That kind of a noun. Now, here's the thing. In Greek, and if you'll look at your paper there, or your book, you'll notice that the cases are listed at the bottom of the page. And they're abbreviated. I'll tell you what all those mean in a minute. To turn the page, though, you can see that he begins to talk about the article. We'll come right back to that. The noun, which I would hope that we would understand the noun is a person, place, or thing. It's the what, or the who, and not the how. That's the noun, or the verb. I'm focusing on the word case. Case has to do with the function of the noun. That's the first phrase in that 2nd paragraph. Now, gender, word order, all the other things I already talked about. What I want to do is I want to go back to case, because case is going to say everything about that noun. So turn on back to page 17. Looks like that. And we'll go down the case, and we'll come back and pick up some of those other paragraphs that'll make more sense once we get the big one out of the way. The first case is the nominative case. Now, the nominative case will always, always, always be the subject. Okay? So the nominative is always the subject. So when you see a noun, no matter where it is in the sentence, if it's in the nominative, that's the subject. Okay? That's the subject. You don't have to worry about it. Doesn't matter the order. It could be the verb first. You know, a lot of Greek sounds like you to speak. You know, where they do the indirect objects first. To the store I will go. Now, you know. But we would say subject, predicate, object, indirect object. I am going to the store. So, I would be the subject, going is the predicate, to the store is the prepositional phrase or the indirect object. Okay? So, anytime you see the nominative case, it is always the subject. Genitive and then ablative. There we go. Well, that's pretty sloppy. Sorry. Genitive and ablative are the next 2 cases. Now, I'm gonna lump these together because the cases form a single format, or they look the same. Okay? Even though they are used differently. The genitive speaks of source, and ablative speaks of ability, enablement. Ablative. So you have the possession, for instance. This is mine, of me, or for me, or from me. So genitive and ablative are always about the source, or I don't know, it probably gives you different words here. Separation. And typically you translate, I'll use a different color here. Typically you translate genitive of or from. Okay? Now, the third case is actually three. Locative, instrumental, and dative. Usually, they summarize it as dative, just like they summarize this as genitive. But it's actually all three of them. Locative is the location. Instrumental is means. Dative is some kind of a subset. And your words here are to, by, in, with, for. It could be any of those. Context is always going to be clear. Okay? There'll be times that we'll always play around with this a little bit and make sure we got it right. The other way you do it is like trying on shoes at Walmart. You know, you try one on, try another one on, try another one on. One of them's going to fit. Okay? Even though you could buy any of them, one of them's going to fit. And so, anytime you have locative, instrumental, or dative, we'll narrow it down by its use in the sentence. Context is king. Again, I'll show you this in just a minute. The fourth one that we'll talk about tonight is the accusative. And it is always the direct object. Okay? Now, in case you've forgotten your days of grammar, your direct object is the instrument of the subject. It will always answer the what question. The boy hit the, let's say ball. I could say sister, but you know, that sounds mean. You know, the boy hit the ball. So the boy is the subject, hit is the verb, ball is the direct object. What did he hit it with? Well, we're thinking baseball. The boy hit the ball with the bat. Indirect object. So you have direct object, indirect object. Subject, the boy from Colombia. Right here, let me erase this and I'll write up just a simple sentence and then I'll show you how each of these work, okay? Oops. Now I guess we're going to erase, all right? Now once you get this, you're going to see this and you're going to say that how well, incredibly well these things work. Okay, so we'll go, the boy hit the ball with a bat. Okay? So this is going to be nominative. This is going to be accusative. This is going to be, well, we know it's going to be instrumental because it's the means by which he hit the ball. So when you're looking down this sentence and you're looking at the endings on these nouns, you're going to realize that the ending is going to tell you exactly where to put that word in your sentence. Always, 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 always. Now, I'm already going to begin to teach diagramming, okay? And I love diagramming. Watch this. Remember these days? Do you have diagramming in school?
Long time ago in a galaxy car.
Yeah. I hear you. Okay, well, here it comes again. You have main line, you have your subject predicate. This is your subject. This is your predicate. Predicate is the verb. This is your object marker. So here's direct object. And then here is your indirect object. All right? Now watch this. This is just going to make so much sense. Always, 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 always. Until we get to third semester, and then there'll be some very, very, very slight exceptions. But don't worry about it. This is nominative. This is accusative. This is locative, instrumental, and dative. And then anything that hangs down from here as a description is genitive affective. Now other things can hang down. Adjectives can hang down. Adverbs can hang down off of here. Prepositions can hang down, but don't worry about those. We'll get to those after Christmas. Okay? I want you to know that when we talk about this, these parts of speech, they make it to where you, for instance, you have a string of words, all right? And it looks like dog bites man. But how do you know it isn't man bites dog? Well, in the Greek, man would be nominative, dog would be accusative. So there's no doubt who bit whom. Okay? In Greek. In English, that's why we have so many lawyers. English is very, very imprecise. Greek, very, very precise. So you know the subject, you know the direct object, you know the indirect object. So the boy, nominative, hit the ball, accusative, with the bat, indirect object. The boy from Colombia hit the ball from the, I don't know, from his grandma with the bat from his grandpa. See, I mean, I can describe each one of these underneath, and there's no doubt where they go. Okay? So if you think diagrammatically, you're going to be able to lay these sentences out, and they will make all the sense in the world. Okay? Okay. Any questions about what I'm talking about as far as parts of speech? You remember enough of grammar? Okay. All right. Now, let's talk then about the endings. Because I want you to see how the endings work. Let's pick a word, and you can read on page 17, you can read right down through there. I didn't talk about vocative. We'll talk about vocative this week and next week, and then it basically falls off the edge of the table because it just rarely comes up. Almost never. Even in the New Testament. I mean, rare. All right, turn to page 19. Did I get that backwards?
You did. You put 18 and 17. It's alright though.
Yeah, see, the secretary, I didn't do this. I mean, I did this and the secretary should have done it. Because the secretary would not have messed it up. And I messed it up. I'm sorry. I'll go get a stapler. You can tear them apart and restaple it later if you want to. I go to page 19. At the top of the page, and I'll show you how this works. All right? Let's see, what word did he use? Doulos? Yeah, let's us do the same thing. I'll just use that. Doulos. Okay, now, here's the deal. This is the ending, right here. Okay, Omicron sigma. That tells you that it is single and it is nominative. Plural would be douloi. Just like that. That would be servants. Okay? Now, to move right down the page, you can have doulou and come on, Mike, spell. Doulon. Okay? And so that ending, and that ending, and that ending. And so this is subject. This is of or from. Then the second one is doulo. Okay? And then the plural, doulois. And so this is to, by, for, with, I don't know, there are several prepositions. Actually, prepositions are in chapter 8. And once you get the preposition that matches the case, it actually makes this easier. For now, it feels like there's too many choices. How could I possibly be right? And the answer is once we get to the prepositions and we add that to our sentence, it actually becomes easier. Okay? So just kind of hang with the fluidity right now. And then it'll just keep getting clearer and clearer as we go along. Next week, there'll be several options on these sentences that are right. Some of them a little goofier than others, but many of them can be right. We'll work then for the rest of the year on getting it specific. Okay? The next one is doulon. And here again, this is a genitive ablative. This is locative instrumental dative. And there is accusative. And here it kind of does get a little tricky. The ending for the accusative plural is the same. Okay? No, I'm sorry. Doulos. I'm sorry. I wrote that down wrong. There we go. Boy and doula. There we go. It's the same as the plural here. I was one line ahead of myself. Okay? So that's the ending for the vocative. Oops, wrong color. The douloi. These two are the same, but it is so rarely used, it's not going to be relevant. Okay? So, when you make out your card, you don't have to write the whole word, but just write in the center. Now at first, you may want to write down over to the edge how that might be translated, like the word subject, of or from, to, for, by, with, direct object. That's okay. And then vocative is direct address. But the main thing is that these endings all tell you what part of speech it is. And truly, don't worry about the vocative for now. It's going to be so rare that it's just not relevant hardly. All right? So, doulos, doulou, doulo, doulon, doulat, douloi, doulon, doulous, doulois. No, I'm sorry. That is doulois, that is doulous. There we go. A little clearer. Okay? So you're going to want to make a card out like this. Second declension, and by the way, they call this second declension because the first declension is with alpha. Second declension is with omega, or omicron and omega. Okay? See, the omicron is a connecting vowel, or omega. The other one's going to start with an alpha. We'll cover it next week. Now, almost all of these nouns are masculine, and there are a few neuter nouns. Next week, in first declension, they're almost all feminine nouns with a few masculine. There's no such thing as a second declension feminine. There's no such thing as a first declension neuter. I don't know why. They just sorted them out like that. Makes it easier. Okay? Now, so you're going to make out a little card. Second declension. You're going to have nominative, genitive, ablative, locative, instrumental, dative, accusative, and vocative. Now, some people are going to say, well, you're taking Greek. Is he teaching a 5-case or an 8-case system? And your answer is a very calm yes. Because the 5 cases are right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But there's 2 in this one and 3 in this one, which gives you a total of 8. So, yeah, oh, is that? Ah, yes. Now, Christian's made up some of these cards again, and these are very handy. He's got it to where you can write your endings in here, and then he tells you at the bottom what chapter and things like this. The gender, for instance, masculine. You'll need at least 2 of these cards for this lesson because you're going to have masculine gender and then neuter gender. So, you want me to just leave them up here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow, you got a lot of cards here. That looks nice. Ooh, I like the white ones actually. Just my Greek
I went
is...
color-coded because I got tired of trying to
trying to figure out which one it was. My Greek is so bad though, I need all the help I can get. I tend to scrawl my Greek. Okay? So after class, come and grab some.
Adelphos, the accents on the os, so it gets dropped. Where does it go for the other ending?
Which accent?
Isn't the accent over the omicron?
Mm-hmm.
So if the os goes away.
Well, the accents I don't teach. Now, and he does mark the accents on here early anyway. I don't know. You're right. He doesn't show the accent marks on huios or doulos. He shows circumflex over both the nominative. Yeah, I didn't teach the accents, so I don't worry about it. And the accents were never inspired. They never changed a single translation. Ever, 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 ever. So I don't even teach them. Now, if you go to seminary and you pay $400 now for one of these classes, he will teach them. But he should be honest enough to tell you the same thing I am, and that is they weren't inspired. They don't change ever, ever, ever your translation. And of course, the originals didn't have them because the originals were all written in caps. Remember I showed you that picture? So there were no accent marks, there were no breathing marks in the original writings for the Greek. So I don't mess with it. You guys got enough to learn without messing with it. Okay? Now, let's go back through and I'll pick up some of the pieces I missed and then we'll go over the vocab. And then I'll show you how this actually works in your sentences. Because once I think when you start to see it in your sentences, it'll make a lot more sense. Okay? All right, here we go. Let's go to, let me go to the top of 16, 4.3, the article. What is so cool about the article is that the article tells you whether it's the, or if there is no article, it is a. Okay? The ball, a ball. Okay? So, you will know that. Now, the article also matches the ending, which I think you'll find to be incredibly helpful. In everything except nominative singular, the article is simply the ending with a tau. So if you'll look, ha, but then it's tu, to, ton. Toy, or poi, I'm sorry, tone, tois, tus. You see it? I read just straight down the line. I read down the single line, then I read down the plural line. I'll do it again. Ha, nominative single, because there's a rough breathing mark. And then to, toe, ton. Over to the plural side. Hoi, and then it is tone, tois, and tus. Now the neuter is similar, but it has a little different article, and I'll show you that. Ta, tu, to, ta, tone, tois, ta. It's the same thing. Okay? Slightly different, but not much. He talks about the noun, he talks about the case. I've already explained all those things to you. Let's see, that's 16. 17 is the list of all the cases. And I think basically what you want to do is you want to harvest out of these paragraphs the prepositions that he uses. Genitive is of the apostle or from the house. Dative is to the crowd. Locative is in the house or by. There's several words you can use there. Instrumental is by means of, with, by the law, with the law. The accusative is always just going to be the, but it answers the what question. You'll always know in the accusative because the man ate, and you're just kind of leaning forward in your chair, waiting for accusative. He ate the apple, he ate the sandwich, he ate the candy bar, whatever it is. But it answers the what question. The accusative, the direct object, will always answer the what question. The man ate the cat chased the, you just have this, that, okay? So it's always, always, always a direct object, all right? Now, back to 18, because I did get it in the wrong word order. The gender, now neuter does not mean neutered, okay? So just so that we are clear on that. Neuter simply means it has no specific gender, okay? So if you have chickens, you have roosters and hens, boys and girls. But if you have rocks, there are no boy rocks or girl rocks. Okay? There's no gender applied. So we have neuter things and we have things with gender. So neuter simply means without specific gender. All right? Now word order. Word order is usually a reflection of emphasis in Greek. So I can put something out of order. And basically what that means is whatever I'm emphasizing, you can put it back in the correct order because you know you're going to go nominative, predicate, accusative, indirect object. You know you're going to do that. So whatever order the apostle writes it in, you know what he's emphasizing, but you also then can put it in the correct order. Now that does cause another complication for you, because then when you preach it or teach it, you have to read it in the English order, and then you just have to teach them what was the order of the apostle. So every now and then you'll hear me say, in the Greek text, this was the first word. Even though in English it was 5 words, 6 words down our sentence. This was what his emphasis was. And you can see that in the word order of the Greek text. It just didn't come out that way in English. Or it would have sounded like Yoda speak. Okay? Now the forms of the second declension, this is where he starts on the word. And let me just read again some of these words so you can hear them spoken and know kind of what it sounds like. All right? And he goes down and talks about some of the accent marks, but don't worry about those. Anthropos, anthropou, anthropo, anthropon, anthropa. I read you straight down. You see that? Going over to the next column. Anthropoi, anthropone, anthropois, anthropous. Now, every one of those endings tells you which one of these prepositions was intended. So there's no doubt, even though you have some variety, there's still no doubt. Lagos, lagu, lago, lagon, laga. Or, on the plural column, lagoi, lagon, lagois, lagus,
Not logos?
lagos. Didn't I say lagos?
No, because you said it's logos, not logos.
Lagos. It's always lagos.
I mean,
Lagu, lago. Oh, I was reading down this line.
what was you say? Remember last week you were talking about
Yeah.
if they never take Greek?
Yeah, if you never take another word of Greek, lagos is how the nominative single is always pronounced. Always, always, always.
Not logos.
Never logos. Never logos.
Logos, yeah, that's it.
Never logos. Lagos, because they're both omicrons.
Right.
So lagos, lago, or lagu, lago, lagan, laga, and then lagoi, lagon, lagois, lagus. Got it? All right, let's see. Here's, I got them in the wrong order. So then we skip to 19. Doulos, doulou, doulo, doulon, doula. We're going on to the next column. Douloi, doulon, doulois, doulous. Now, remember I told you that the diphthongs, remember the diphthongs that you had on that one chart? Yeah, see, the diphthong, pardon me, the diphthong of upsilon iota is like the English word, like a hotel room suite, S-U-I-T-E, suite. But there's no W in it, but we still say sweet, right? All right. Well, the same thing is true. The W sound is the huias. Those two, as in sweet. Those two. Okay? So, we have huias. We have huiu, huio, huion, huia. Believe me, I don't think huia is ever used in the Greek New Testament, so don't worry about it. Huioi, huion, huiois, huius. Now the neuter also are similar, but they do have some of the other endings. Now, you can make up a second declension masculine card and then a second declension neuter card if you want to. Or you can just write, because most of them are the same, but if they're different, you can just write it in parentheses next to it. All right? Now I'm also going to give you instructions on how to do your homework, because tonight's our first time we have homework. Other than just make up your cards and study the words. We actually have sentences. Okay? So I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. And these cards are an important part of that. All right? Now, let me pronounce the paragraph under the neuter. Duran. Doran, I'm sorry. Doran. Doru. Doro. Doran. Now the other column. Plural. Dora. Doron. Dorois. Dora. Now some of them are identical. So context will tell you whether it's a nominative plural or an accusative plural. Okay? Hit Aran, hit Aru, hit Aro, hit Aran, hit Ara, hit Aron, hit Arois, hit Ara. Okay? So you've heard them. Practice is all that's going to help this. Because right now you may feel like you're drowning. Okay? I understand. Yeah.
Does it make PH sound because it's like the heavy accent?
Have rough breathing mark. Correct. I'm sorry. Thank you for asking. The breathing marks to the right is rough. See? And then to the left is soft. This equals an H sound, and this equals nothing.
Why bother putting on there if it doesn't make a sound?
It identifies it as a vowel so that you don't wonder. Did they just leave it off?
Okay.
So every time a vowel starts a word, it'll either have a rough or a smooth.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Good question.
The breathing mark over the first letter is the only indicator that it's not a diphthong.
Not a diphthong, that is correct, like on Hitaron. Because Hitaron, what he's asking is if the breathing mark is over the second letter, that would tell you that that was a diphthong. But it is not. It is over the first letter. Therefore, that's a syllable, and Iran, Hit-Ron, the 3 syllables there actually. Okay?
So how's the first one go?
It wouldn't, it's impronounceable. Iran, I think. Hiron,
Ironic.
Hironi, yeah. Yeah. But it's not a word, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that's what he's asking. Okay? All right. Let's go down the vocab, and then we'll do some sentences. And boy, once you see these sentences, I tell you what's going to happen. You're just going to have so much fun with these sentences. There's going to be this sinking feeling when you get to the end of the lesson, like, man, there are no more sentences. And you're just going to have this sadness that will settle in on you until we meet together next week.
That's all there is.
Yep. I promise you. No? Okay, here we go. Anthropos. Apostolos. Artos. Now, notice all 3 of those have the omicron on the end. That's the article. I'm sorry, I'm in the box right here. Vocab. I always read the vocab just before the lesson. That way, if you have any questions on how they're pronounced, we can do that now. Anthropos, apostolos, artos, doron. Now notice that has a tau omicron. That's a neuter.
Right.
Thanatos, death. Hitaron, temple. Chi, there's your first conjunct. Don't you feel like singing that Saturday morning cartoon? Conjunction, junction. Yeah. You remember?
Yeah.
Ah, it's a great cartoon. We should have had about 50 of those made for all the parts of speech, then we'd be a lot smarter. I think they only made 2 or 3 of them. That was one of them. Kurios, the word for Lord. Lithos, the word for stone. Now, there's especially a neat place. At the bottom of Queen Anne's Church, just past the Pool of Bethesda, inside the Stephen's Gate on the northeast corner of ancient Jerusalem, in the basement of this church, it is the courtyard of the Antonio Fortress. And there are still carvings into the sidewalk where they gambled for the possessions of the condemned. Jesus. And it's called the Lithostros. Lines in the stone. That's what it means. Lithostros. And you can see them. I've taken people there every year. So that's lithos. It's Greek. Lithostros. Namos. Namos. The word for law. Actually, I'll give you, now you've already got a couple of words, so let me give you a third word that's not on your list. Logos is the word for word. Namos is the word for law. Aster is the word, or aster is the word for star. So, astrologos, the word of the stars, is astrology. Like the stars are speaking to me. But asternomos, astronomy, is the order or law of the stars, the constellations. Big difference between astrology and astronomy.
Could you say those 2 again?
Aster is the word for star, logos. So astrology is the words of the stars. Asternomos, astronomy, is the law of the stars. And we use that phrase constellations, or the movement of the stars. Okay? Which, by the way, oh man, there's so many lessons. Remember I told you it's like my big fat Greek wedding? Everything comes from Greek. The word planet. The word planet is from the Greek word plane, which is a lie or a deceit or something to lead you astray. Planae are the stars that wander. So here you've got the constellation, and then you've got this red one and this green one and this orange one over here. And they were wandering stars, and only by the time of Copernicus and Galileo did we start to realize they're not stars. But we called them wandering stars, and so they got the name planet from the Greek word plane, the wanderer. And that's where we call them still to this day planets. And so when you get to the word planeo, which means to deceive, you're going to think, wait a minute, how do we get the word planet from being a liar?
Gotcha.
And that's where it comes from, is they're wandering stars, because everything else held a complete, solid, non-viable pattern called constellation. And then you'd have Venus, this morning star, it didn't seem to follow anything. Or the red star, Mars.
So is Jacob Hebrew? Because it's the
Yaakov.
Is that deceiver?
Yeah, and that means one who replaces, the supplanter. He oftentimes deception with that, but it actually means that I'm going to replace something. Yaakov. Where was I? Well, I get sidetracked so easily.
House. Household.
Oikos, house. Oikos. Aklos, crowd. And then huios, sun. I talked a little bit about that last week in my ichthus, my fish. Okay? Okay, now here's for the fun. All right? I mean, this is just so much fun. In fact, I hate to read too many of the sentences to you because I feel like I'm stealing some of your fun. Okay? Here we go. I am reading sentence number 1, 4.9, wishing you were there. Okay? Here we go. Ha-anthropos genoskai tan naman. I will now read it in English. The man, he is knowing the law. The man, he is knowing the law.
So why is it not the man knows the law?
I want you to go ahead and identify for me that it's third person single.
Okay.
And I always want you to keep it as a gerund, because knows could also later be confused with some of the aorist tenses. And so I want you to keep it as a gerund, an ing word.
Gotcha.
Okay? So go ahead and keep it as an ing word. Go ahead and put in the extra pronoun, even though it seems redundant.
Right.
That way I'll know you know it.
Gotcha.
Now, here's what I want you to do, okay? Now, first thing you do, here's how you do your homework. You take your vocab cards, okay? You take your vocab cards and you lay them out on your desk and you go through them one at a time. Choom, 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 okay? And if you miss one, do that one again. Choom. Okay? Go through your vocab. Set those aside. Then you take your, so far you only have 2. Your little handy dandy cards. Lay them right up on top of your book. Okay? Then you take your paper. And what I want you to do, here's my eraser, is I want you to write out for me the Greek text. So on this one, it's going to be anthropos, genoskai, tan naman. Only you'll be able to get it all in one line. Okay? Now, underneath of that, you write out what it means. So the man, this is present, indicative, active, third person single. So he is knowing. This is nominative, masculine, single, right there. The law, and That tells you that this is accusative masculine singular. So I know it goes at that end of the sentence. It's a direct object.
Right.
Now, when you smoothed it out for a translation that you're going to publish, you would say that. The man knows the law.
Gotcha.
But we're not publishing.
Gotcha.
We're working on accuracy. and so you'll write it out in the Greek, and then you'll write it out in the English. And then any other notes that you want to write around that will help you make sure that you have on the paper. Now, here's the deal. I know I'm going to sound like that algebra teacher you hated. Nobody's an algebra teacher, are they?
Show your work.
No. Show your work.
Show your work.
Yeah, show your work. I hated Mr. Cogdale. He would say it all the time. It was totally unnecessary. I had the right answer. However, here's the thing. If you bring me a sentence and you don't have some of this other stuff written on there, I won't know what you did. I can't help you fix it. So you're bound to make that same mistake again. So show me, I call this a wooden translation because it's got extra words in it. They're too clumsy. I don't even care if you don't smooth it out. Bring this. Just bring the raw data. Bring the Greek, bring the wooden. That's all we need. We can work on smoothing it out later. We got to get it right before we get it smooth. And so we're, this whole class is working on getting it right, not necessarily getting it smooth. I do not intend to come up with another beautiful translation to rival the King James. Okay? Ever, ever, ever. I do have the biblical responsibility to rightly divide the word of truth. So, that's my job. That's what I'm trying to teach you. Okay? So, write out the Greek, write out the wooden, write out any notes that you need to help you. Now, see, some of these things after a while you don't need to do. You know, you don't need to write down that. I mean, other than maybe accusative, nominative accusative. Obviously, right now, everything you have is masculine, singular, plural. Because you haven't had first declension yet. Next week will be first declension feminine. And so we can add, but for now, you don't have to worry about that. Now, this GNC thing I started with, oh, that comes in handy. Guess what? Every adjective will match GNC. Everything that connects to, like number, will match. So you'll have this little marker you can follow all the way through the sentence. GNC, GNC, GNC. You'll hear me say that over and over and over. And it'll keep you from mismatching. That's a handy thing. It really is. Gender, number, and case. And the case is here. Let's read another sentence. I'll just show you how easy this is, okay? Number 2. Hadulos ferai doron. The servant. He is bearing a gift. Now, not the gift, because there's no article. So it's a gift. All right? Do you see it?
Bearing,
He is bearing.
be bringing.
Bringing?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll bet you he said bringing, not bearing. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, on your card it probably says bringing. You're looking at this thinking to yourself, if I'd have known Greek was this easy, I'd have taken it a long time ago. Amen? That's what you're sitting there thinking, isn't it? I can read your mind.
Oh, I hope not. I don't think so.
I mean, here we are, week 3, and I'm reading Greek sentences, right? Huh? So, man, this is easy. Yeah, it takes a real skilled person to say something this easy and make it look hard, okay? Let's read the third sentence, then we'll call it a night. Apostolos, legai, legon. The apostle, he is speaking a word. Yeah.
Now, how are you getting he?
I'm making it up.
Okay.
It could be she. Yeah. Now, the apostle is masculine. So, I'm going to assume that it is he. But, just on its own, I wouldn't know that. But the apostle is masculine. So, I'm implying that he. Could be he, she, or it. But since the apostle is masculine, since the servant is masculine, since the, since you've only had second declension masculine, everything's going to be a boy. After next week, though, we have girls too. Could be it. But since all three of those are masculine, I use the pronoun he. Okay? Yes?
Okay, so like, that's number 3.
Yes?
We're assuming it's a male, if it was a male apostle reading the word.
Yes?
If it was a female apostle reading the word, would you change the sentence at all?
Yes. First of all, if it was a female apostle, that would violate everything I know about the New Testament. So, no, let me be serious. Let's go to sentence number 2. The servant. There is a form of first declension servant, and it would have a feminine article, and it would have a feminine ending, and it would be first declension.
Okay.
And if it was first declension noun, I would probably use she
Okay.
as my pronoun.
But what about a noun that like, it applies to both men and
Then I would say it.
say it? Like teacher could be both a man or a woman.
Well, yeah, now, again, it will tell you, because hadidaskalos is the word for teacher, and it's always, that would be masculine, unless it was in first declension form. So, and I'll show you some of those. Hadidaske is actually the first declension feminine. So, yeah, it's actually easier than maybe you think it is. See, in English, we don't deal with gender unless the word implies gender.
Right.
So,
But did you spend part of the last lesson or the one before it making it clear that the genders of Greek nouns have nothing to do with?
right, the sex. That's correct. Yeah, you can. Everything is assigned gender. Chairs have gender.
Right. I know.
We only carry gender if it's biologically sexed. You know, like a rooster is a boy, a hen is a girl, a bull is a. Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about a steer, and you know, and then you have asexual worms. You know, and I mean we're all messed up. See, we don't carry that. Other languages do. I know here, Portuguese carries gender with almost all its nouns. Yeah, and Spanish does, and so, but in English we don't do that unless there is gender implicit in the very subject. So a rooster is always going to be a boy, you know. You don't want to say the rooster, she laid eggs, because you got several problems there. Right? The rooster can't be a she. And believe me, if it's rooster, it's not laying eggs. My guess is you got rooster wrong. You may have the right pronoun. You just got the wrong noun. And so, you know, that's the kind of thing. Okay? Again, some of this makes better sense. I'm trying to describe something, a pie, to you by describing a single slice. Once we get more slices back together, it actually makes more sense than trying to describe a pie one slice at a time, which is what we're doing tonight. So last week we had our first taste of verbs. This week we have our first taste of nouns, and the endings tell you how to use those nouns in the sentence. So go ahead and do the rest of the sentences. Next week, here will be our format. We will grade our sentences. I will teach the lesson. We will read the vocab, and then whatever time I have left, just like tonight, I'll read a couple of the sentences to you. Great. Sound like a plan? We will do this from now until Mother's Day, when the assignment will be 1 John. I won't change. That will be our format from now on until Mother's Day. And you will be reading 1 John. Okay? Man, I hope you're as excited as I am. I never get tired of this. Ever, ever, ever. All right. If you're going to history, good luck. I can't imagine listening to me another hour and a half, but you're welcome. You have my email address, so if you get stuck... Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, one last thing. It's super important, okay? For your sanity and for your family, never spend more than 5 minutes on a sentence. Do you hear me? Stop at the end of 5 minutes. Do not hit your head against the wall. Do not stay up till 2 in the morning, okay? You give it 5 minutes and you move on, because what will happen is we'll get back together the next Sunday. I'll tell you one little thing you were overlooking, and then the whole thing makes sense. And it's like, I spent 20 minutes on that and you solved it in 30 seconds. I I'm telling you now, don't spend more, we have a 5, now when we get to participles, I will actually increase that to 6, okay? But until we get to participles, the 5-minute rule is in play, okay? Never more than 5 minutes on a sentence. If you come in here next week and say, I spent 2 hours on those 10 sentences, you messed up. 10 sentences is 50 minutes or less, okay? Review vocab, make your cards, do your homework, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
More verbs if people need them too.
Those are very helpful, by the way. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate it. Those are very helpful. All right, I'm going to run and get some coffee and then go teach my next class.